Kevin Stimpson here, and you're watching SNG TV, the place to be for the dreamer, go-getter, and action taker. Today's guest, we have Katie Ashley. She's a positive body image and self-love activist, as well as a yoga therapy mentor. Katie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
No problem. So let's dive into your story. First, tell us what a positive body image and self-love activist is.
Yeah, it is. I've kind of taken it upon myself to spread this message that it is really, really possible to create unconditional love for your body and for yourself. Um, there's sort of this fallacy that we're going to accept our body, and what does that mean? And I think that you can start with unconditional love. Like, start with a place where you really love who you are and your experience in your own body, and at the same time you can want to change it. You can want to be stronger or more flexible or be a different size if that would be preferable or more healthy. And then I work a lot in the realm of eating disorders. And so there's this idea that like partial recovery is recovery. And I'm definitely fallen into the camp that doesn't believe that at all. That like full recovery is really, really possible, and that you're shortchanging yourself by going only halfway. And so I speak a lot, I write a lot, and then in my yoga therapy based mentoring, I talk one-on-one and with groups a lot, just sort of spreading this message and helping other people figure out what it means for them to love their bodies and their selves unconditionally.
Amazing. We need more people like that in this world. So pull back the covers a little bit. How did you get into that space? What really made you like dive into that? Was it more of a personal thing, or you had to do more self-discovery to kind of try to figure that out? Or how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, it was totally a personal thing at first. The way I got into what I do now is by not having it myself in my own life. I was a dancer. I was a professional dancer, which I had worked my whole life, from like 5 until, it happened at 18. I had one path, and it was dancing, and that was it. Like I was not very easily distracted, even in high school. And, at the same time, towards the end of my teenage years and into my early adult years, I was struggling badly with anorexia, and got to this place where I was super, super lucky. My parents were able to spend tens of thousands of dollars for treatment.
Wow.
And, most people, insurance cuts off at a certain point, and so you either have to somehow find the money yourself or you're just kind of out of luck. So I was super lucky that my parents had the money to pay for continued treatment. And I did everything right. Like, if you could get, 5 gold stars on how to recover, I would have gotten them. Like, it was, like, perfect by the book. And I left treatment, and within about 2 to 3 weeks, I found myself living in like a 1-room apartment that my parents had been paying for. And I had an entire group of people staying with me that had just gotten out of a drug addiction rehabilitation center, and they were relapsing. And I was kind of going right along with that, even though I had never done any drugs before. But I was so not wanting to go down that path of relapsing into an eating disorder again. And in my process of recovery, I was told that I couldn't dance and be healthy. So I had to give it up. I had to totally give up my job. I had a full performance scholarship to an amazing college. I had to call and cancel that.
Wow.
And so I found myself in this place where I was supposedly recovered, but I didn't have a clue who I was or what I wanted to do, or how to like live in the world. And so I went totally off the deep end. And so I got to a point where, of course, my parents were like, well, this isn't going to work. And they kicked me out of the place that I was living at, and pretty much were like, you're on your own. Like,
Wow.
you can come back with us now, or we can send you back down to South Florida
Hmm.
and you can figure it out. And by the way, you can't talk to your brother again.
Wow.
And that for me was a huge wake up call that I had not a clue how I was going to do it. I did not know how I was going to do recovery. I didn't know how I was going to become me. I didn't know who me was. Um, but I decided in that moment that I wasn't going back down the same path, but I couldn't go the step-by-step recovery path that I had gone either,
Right.
because neither one was working.
Right.
So I kind of made a commitment to figure it out my way. And there were many ups and downs. I did end up relapsing again. And then it got to a stronger point where I kind of made the same decision again, but with more information. I had more information the next time.
Okay, so first off, you pretty much told us like the whole journey, so that's great. So it seemed like you hit rock bottom. You had a lot of challenges and adversity and things like that that you had to overcome. So what was it inside? You said you didn't really know who me was. What
Mm-hmm.
really took it for you to take it to the next level and try to figure out what the next steps in your life was going to be, and have you think about, I don't want to be in this place anymore. So how am I going to get out of that?
Yeah, I think the time that it really started to come together is at that point in time when I first decided, like, okay, I need to figure out who I am my way. I would make huge decisions just kind of based on absolutely nothing except for, like, well, maybe I'll try this because, like, this could work. and
Right.
and I had no connection to my own intuition, like, none. I knew what I didn't want, but I didn't have a clue what I did want.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made huge decisions, like, major relationships or job choices, cross country moves. Like, I kept kind of doing all of these things in a way that was more running away than it was seeking.
Mm.
And so I got to a point where I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, and I can vividly remember walking down the street, and it was just like a pretty normal day. But I came to the realization that, like, it dawned on me that I was not trying to figure out who I was at all. I was just, like, trying on all of these different lives.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I realized it wasn't me, I would just run away. Like, no warning, end relationships, no warning, leave jobs. Like, just,
Wow.
it would, like, dawn on me that I wasn't happy, and I would just bail. And I would get hurt, and other people would get hurt, and it was, like, not good at all. And so I made the choice that I was going to really figure it out. And I was going to, like, figure out the steps that I needed to take to figure out who I was, that it wasn't going to be these, like, outside circumstances. So I decided I was going to stay. I was just going to keep being in Charleston. I was going to keep the job that I had. I was going to, like, keep similar things going on, but try to figure out the stuff inside. Like,
Yeah.
how do I listen to my intuition anyway? And, like, why did I always let it get to this awful point before I would hear it?
Right.
And so I decided to really do that. And then it was, a still long and up and down journey, but it was in a, like, forward motion. There was always forward motion happening instead of, like, this zigzag pattern.
Right. So tell our users how long it really took for you to get out of that hole. So we kind of want to paint the picture here that, you may be stuck in a trap for X amount of time, but there's always ways and opportunities to persevere, which, you really did. So how long was it that you were, trying to figure it out on that path?
It was probably a good 6 or 7 years of continual forward motion.
Mm-hmm.
But, it took me a while to figure out, like, okay, I'm here. Mm-hmm. And to get to a point that I had to kind of redefine what like getting there meant. You know, like
Right.
this place where it was like, oh, okay, you know, like these, you know, in yoga we talk a lot about like staying on point. Like my teacher Minorma talks about staying on point, and you know, in that regard, we were talking about mentally, like not going, you know, far off point and like way into one space and way into another. Um, and for me, getting here started to mean that, like this place where I like really liked my life and I liked what I was doing, and I felt like I was actually living on purpose. You know, and there would still be times where I would like swing a little bit one way or swing a little bit another way. But after about 6 or 7 years, I started to swing less.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So how has failure played a big part of like your success to, you know, where you are now, to the point where you can coach and mentor other people kind of going through the same situations that you were once going to?
Yeah. Um, Failure is huge for
Right.
me. I, by nature and just habit, was a huge perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, failure was not an option. And so it's been really interesting that I think all of the success that I have had in like my personal journey and my professional journey has been this interesting marriage of like giving myself permission to fail without there being the potential to fail in the same way.
Right.
You know, like the option of relapsing or the option of getting disconnected from my intuition or from my goals and from my passion, like that is not an option. Like failing in that way is not possible.
Right.
But giving myself permission to fail in a million other ways has been kind of the key to success for me.
Absolutely, because you're taking those risks and you're saying, well, hey, I don't know the outcome, what it's going to be, but I'm going to dive in and, you know, see what happens anyway, because I don't know what the outcome is going to be unless I try, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, you know, Strive and Grind is all about the dreamers, go-getters, and action takers. It's all we do. That's who we are. It's at the core of our existence. So, I know you had tons of challenges, you know, early on. So,
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about like how average, like the concept of being average, kind of plays a part in other people kind of not knowing what their paths are in life.
Yeah. I that's kind of it's funny that that's a question because that's kind of like a core part of like my belief system, like my
Right.
teachings and what I do
Good.
is I really believe like wholeheartedly that nobody is average and that there is no such thing as average. There's just this lack of bravery or lack of ability to really look at ourselves and see how great we actually each are.
Love it.
And that all of us innately have this huge potential, and that looking at that like recognizing that we really could be just amazing can be terrifying,
Yeah.
and that can kind of keep us stuck. And that we can get to this place where we just sort of accept like, oh, I'll only be this level of happy, or I'll only be this level of healthy, or I'll only be this level of, you know, financially prosperous.
Mm-hmm.
And that those, you know, only this level is sort of average. It's like what everyone else that we know is doing.
Yeah.
So we just sort of accept it, but we're just not really happy. And you know, I don't believe that anybody is innately there. You know, that that's
Absolutely.
like their best possible at all.
Absolutely. I mean, I know I firmly believe that every single one of us have a dose of greatness within us. It's a matter of, you know, how do you tap into it and how do you unleash it? Sometimes people go their whole lives without tapping into it or unleashing it. And then, you know, some people find it sooner than later. So, what would be your advice to someone who's trying to tap into that so they're not, you know, average at the core?
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice is to kind of change your definition of what like a sign of readiness is.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if someone calls me and wants to work with me and they're calling me and they've read everything, on my website that says like you need to be ready, like you
Yeah.
need to like be in this place, then they're ready. Or if they're on your website and they're watching what you guys are doing,
Yeah.
that's a sign of readiness. That like you're there and you're looking at these people like then you're ready. Like it's time to step up and figure it out. And the when you get to that place where the fear of like staying the same, of nothing changing,
Mm-hmm.
feels worse than not knowing what's gonna happen, then that's when it's time. That's when it's time to like step up and figure out what it is without thinking so much and just learning to kind of feel your way into it.
Absolutely. So, what are some of the ways, or what are some of your techniques of striving for your own greatness? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, every day. I think intention is absolutely key, and that it's not like I don't have these beliefs about the greatness of people or um, what I want in my life just when I'm, with a client or just when I'm in front of my computer. Like
Right.
it's all the time. I like from the way that I'm a mom. I have an almost 3-year-old son. Um, from the way that I talk to him or the school that I choose for him or the interactions I have with my boyfriend or the way I talk to my parents, like
Absolutely.
it's always there, and I try to make sure to convey how I feel about people and that wholeness and that light that I really do see in every single person all the time. Like I I know the names of the people that are checking out the groceries at my grocery store. And I know one of them is currently going through a thing with gluten and I talk to her and I offer her tips that
Right.
I may have, or I know the guy at the coffee shop is in a really interesting place on the edge of getting help with addiction. And so I
Right.
talk to him and I just give him what I know.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Just lending that free helping hand, no charge, just being a great citizen of the society and being of service to, someone else.
yeah, I feel like it seems like it's shortchanging myself and the rest of the world if I just only have an intention if I'm getting paid for it. If I
Absolutely.
only have an intention if I'm actively meditating at that moment.
Right.
It needs to be all the time.
Absolutely. So, going from, where you were prior to, all the struggle, adversity, and challenge, and to where you are now. So, where you are now, what is a typical day like for you?
A typical day now is so I have a son
Mm-hmm.
and he has his own room and his room is kind of down the hall from our room.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually every morning I'll wake up hearing his door open and then he'll run down the hallway and I'll pick him up and put him in bed with Brian and I. And he'll cuddle for a minute and then just start kind of randomly singing. He makes up these really
I
random
love it.
songs that are kind of mashups of various
Right.
different 2-year-old songs and mantras because we're
Mm-hmm.
singing mantras so often. And so that's kind of how we wake up every morning now. And
Nice.
then usually as soon as I notice that I'm awake, I start listing things that I'm grateful for. So I'm grateful that I wake up that way every morning, and I'm grateful for my son Isaac, and I'm grateful for Brian. And I'll just start kind of listing all the things that I'm grateful for. And then I get up and we kind of tag team the morning. So whoever has to work first will be getting ready, and whoever doesn't will start making breakfast for everyone.
Nice.
And then we're out the door. So I spend the time that my son is in school on it. From 8:30 or 9 to 2:30 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm either writing or speaking or doing an interview or seeing clients or creating programs. Um, that all kind of gets packed into that period of time
So talk about
as
the
well.
grind there. Like,
Yeah.
talk about the mindset that you have and, what it really takes to get all that stuff done that you're trying to accomplish in that short period of time. Because, once it comes 2 o'clock and your son's coming home, you kind of probably have to wind down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I usually, to get into the mindset, I'll make tea and kind of make it in like a meditative way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll, sit there and I'll set my intention for what it is that I want to do. And my intention is pretty much always the same. It's to like show up and be really present and to bring as much like purity and truth and honesty and vulnerability into whatever it is that I'm doing so that I can inspire the same in whoever I'm talking to. So that they can really fulfill their fullest potential. I can fulfill my fullest potential, and everyone's lives in the whole world can change as a result.
Absolutely.
And so I get into that intention via a very short yoga practice or meditation or just even thinking about that while I make tea and get my computer open.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, I'll meditate again. Even if it's like 5 minutes or 1 minute in my car in the parking lot of my son's school, like somewhere.
Right.
And I meditate in the car a lot.
That's good. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. But then I pick up Isaac and we play. We live 6 miles from the beach, so we'll go to the beach or go to the park, and it's 100% focused on Isaac, playtime, until he goes to bed. And then
sounds like the American dream.
Yeah, it's good. It's
Absolutely.
good. And then I would love to say that then Brian and I are able to like enjoy a nice dinner and like talk and just be together in the evening. But really, it's often I'm working in one area of the house and he's in his art studio working in another.
It sounds like my wife and I. I'm working and she's working on her art stuff too. So that's cool. So going from where you were before to where you are now, talk a little bit about what do you think kind of separate yourself from most of the other people. You were talking about like how you had to focus and dial in. It was like, no, I had enough pretty much. What are some of those things that you think separated you from everyone else?
I think a big part of it was that the idea of my identity being based around a struggle that I had was not an option. It wasn't like, eating disorders and addiction, there tends to be this mentality of like it's always there. It's like always kind of waiting to come back, like the traditional, meeting style format of like, hi, I'm such and such, and I'm an alcoholic, even though you've been clean and sober for 20 years. Mm-hmm. That kind of thinking is very similar in the eating disorder world, and I was extremely resistant to that. I don't believe in that at all. I think it is, I think it keeps you stuck. And it hinders real healing, and so that was huge for me. That choice, and then that belief that it's not possible just for me, but it's possible for everyone if they choose it. And some people don't, and sometimes, and that's okay. Like it's some people aren't quite to let that part go. But I hope everyone will be at some point.
Absolutely. So kind of piggybacking off of that, what are some of the characteristics, if you will, that you think accredit you for most achieving your greatness or to your success of where you are now?
I think the biggest things for me is that I'm always kind of walking this line of wanting to really follow the rules and wanting to rebel as much as possible. And so I tend to really study things, like really, really study the path, and then kind of like test it out, which is ultimately what led me to yoga and led me to Buddhism. And like in Buddhism, that's part of it. It's like, okay, here are the teachings, like these are the teachings, but question it. Don't just like follow.
Right.
Yeah. And
I think that's naive for people to do too. Like people say, you know, you should do this, or you should go to college and get this degree, or you should do that. But there's no really why behind it, and you're not really questioning it. It's just so and so said it, my mom said it, my teacher said it, or whoever of, say, influence or someone above me said it, so I'm just gonna do what they said, kind of thing.
Yes, yeah. And I found that for the longest time, I would, like follow the rules, and then I would have all of this guilt and shame about following the rules because it felt so not right.
Yep.
Like the rules just didn't feel good. And so then I would rebel, and I would have all of this guilt and shame about rebelling.
Right.
And so finally, I just gave myself permission to stop doing that, to keep rebelling or keep following the rules in my own way because I was learning that way, and I still learn that way.
Absolutely.
But to drop the guilt and shame part, to just stop doing that because it wasn't helping me or anyone else.
Yeah. I think I'm the same way. I kind of operate the same, so that's cool.
Yeah.
So what would be one action like right now that you would give somebody, say our striving grinders, in regards to getting them one step closer to their dream?
I think my favorite tool is meditation. Finding a place where you can meditate in your own way. Like it doesn't have to be I don't like affirmations. I don't like the cheesiness of it. Like if you come to my yoga class or if I, give you a yoga practice to do, there's gonna be like punk rock or hip hop playing. It's not gonna be like very
like
cheesy,
the ocean
like,
playing, like the sounds of the ocean playing in the background or something like that.
Yeah, there's not gonna be any of that. Like it's gonna be like meditating. I love the idea of Vipassana meditation, like seated silent meditation. I think that everyone would benefit from doing that. But finding something that feels like meditation, even whether it's like surfing or painting or like doing something, jewelry making, but something that feels very focused, that you really feel tapped in, and whatever that thing is, keep doing it. Regardless, somehow, every day, even
Absolutely.
if it's, like I said, 1 minute in the car, right. Just do it.
Cool. So, quick question. So, in regards to meditation, I guess my perception of it is, because I'm not really big on that kind of stuff. My wife, she's like slowly getting into it. But is it that you're kind of like diving, you close your eyes and you try to like let your mind like run free, if you will, and you try to sync some kind of just connection with yourself? Can you give like a brief, like 1 minute synopsis on like meditation?
Yes, yeah. So meditation isn't the like cessation of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what most people think.
Yeah.
And so most of us will sit down when we begin meditating and we'll be like, I am failing at meditating because I keep thinking and I can't turn it off.
That's me.
And and then of course, like, why would you keep meditating? Because it makes you feel awful because you're just like beating yourself up the whole time.
Exactly.
But yeah, so like when you first sit down to meditate, just close your eyes, sit in any comfortable position. You do not have to sit in a yoga position. You can just sit in a chair.
Okay.
But close your eyes and you can have a mantra if you want. I don't know, like if you inhale, say let, exhale, say go, or you can count your breaths. But the ultimate goal is to just not stay attached to your thoughts or adverse to what you're thinking. So like so much of our suffering comes from either attachment or aversion. Mm-hmm. And that tends to be what happens. Like if you sit down to meditate, you're like thinking about this thing and you get very attached to it. Like all of a sudden you've planned like your entire grocery list and your like whole to-do list for the next month. Mm-hmm. And then you'll immediately be like, I should not be thinking about this. And so then you're adverse to thinking about it. And then you're suffering. You're like suffering through your meditation. Okay. So at the beginning, it's just this conscious choice to come back to the point, whether it's your mantra or your breath or the counting, and that's all it is this like repetitive coming back to what you're trying to focus on, and that's pretty much it at the beginning, and then eventually it starts to in that process, something will happen. You know, like some people will have really visual experiences,
Mm-hmm.
or some people will get like really clear messages. You know, for me, you know, I can be thinking, like trying to plan, doing all these things, and then I'll sit in meditation, and I'll just kind of set my intention at the beginning of it, and almost immediately I'll have like an answer. You know,
Oh
like
wow.
something will just become really, really clear. Um, and then the practice is to not try to like run with that thought, but
Yeah.
just like let that go too, and know that I'll come back to it, and you know, continue on meditating.
Cool. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
mean, if that didn't help anyone else, it definitely helped me. So,
Yeah. Oh,
thanks.
good. Well, I hope it did. And
Absolutely.
I should have some videos coming soon on meditation.
Cool.
So
So,
I'll let you
if
know.
that comes out in the future too, I can absolutely post this in the show notes so everyone can like take a look as well. So,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So we're wrapping up now. So the question we ask all of our guests: what does strive and grind mean to you?
Strive and grind means to me setting real goals, like setting the goals that seem like the impossible goals to set. You know, like the one that's like, oh, I would love that, but no, like I can't really have that. You know, but
Right.
like choosing that as your goal, and then doing what it takes to do it, to like
Absolutely.
start doing it, and start doing it now, not like here's this goal and I'm just gonna like get there eventually, but like start living in that feeling immediately, like from when you set the intention, even if all the pieces aren't into place yet, the feeling can be.
Boom. You hit the nail right there on the head. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. So, Katie, where can we find you online?
My website is katieashley.org. So I am there. And I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and Facebook. I have a Facebook page too.
Cool.
So, but yeah, my website and probably Instagram are the two that I'm on the most.
All right, so I'll also put your Instagram and your website and all that in the show notes as well. So,
Okay.
Katie, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, if you like this interview, please subscribe below. Katie, once again, thank you so much. You were amazing.
Thank you.